Latest from there. What can you tell us, Sophie?
Well, indeed, we are still here at the Union Buildings. The ministers from South Africa side have already arrived. And with me, I have the Minister of International Relations, who's going to speak to us about the importance of this visit. Good morning, Minister. Quite a sunny Pretoria.
Indeed it is. Wonderful weather. Good morning, Sophie, and morning to the viewers of SABC.
Minister, the visit by the head of government from Germany, how important is this visit?
Well, we're really thrilled that Chancellor Scholz has chosen to prioritize Africa in his first set of international visits. He's visited 2 African countries already, Senegal and Niger. We are the third. He informed us of this earlier this year, and we were thrilled that he wishes to get as close to our country as Chancellor Merkel was for several decades.
Minister, what's high on the agenda, particularly when you look at the international issues or, challenges?
Well, I think foremost for South Africa, obviously, is our economic recovery and reconstruction. And we would like to have Germany's continued economic partnership with South Africa. It's our third largest trading partner, so very important for South Africa. We also want to indicate that our country is ready for business. Our tourist centers are opening up, our hotels are thriving, and all the attractions are ready to receive thousands of German visitors. You might remember, Sophie, when we had to carry out repatriation in 2020 during the worst days of COVID, yes. We had to partner with Germany, with Lufthansa in particular, to bring back South Africans and take Germans back to Germany. We had over 15,000 Germans who were tourists here who had to be returned home. So it's a country that brings many, many people to South Africa and therefore a lot of euros.
Minister, you have touched on the issue of COVID-19. We know that the country, not only the country, countries around the world are struggling. The Secretary General of the United Nations calling on the industrialized nations, particularly the G7, and in this case, Germany being the chair of the G7, to assist developing nations, particularly the Sub-Saharan. I want to talk about issues that are related to COVID-19. Particularly on manufacturing of vaccines.
Well, Germany is already a partner. They're supporting the partnership between BioNTech and our own BioVac here in South Africa. They've really supported our call for Africa to begin to produce its own pharmaceutical products, including vaccines. So the research and innovation partnership is very strong. But I think where we need to give emphasis, and I'm sure President Ramaphosa will do this, is to point out the impact of sanctions on Africa. That is a totally innocent party in the current international conflict. You can see fuel prices are rising in South Africa. We're seeing a huge jump in the price of crude oil. And many African countries are worried about wheat imports. So we really want to discuss this matter of what we do to ensure that Africa doesn't become the victim of a conflict that it did not cause and that it's not involved in. And I hope that that discussion will result in the developed countries that are party to this terrible conflict actually looking at how they address and remedy the impact on the continent.
You are talking about the war in Ukraine. This is a big story worldwide, and the impact of the war in Ukraine is felt across the world, particularly on issues that are related to food security. When the Chancellor was in Senegal, the chair of the African Union, President Macky Sall, pointed out that he will be traveling to Russia and Ukraine to meet the two leaders, particularly looking at setting up corridors for export of food. The impact of this war in terms of us, South Africa, how have we been affected when you look at particularly the poorest of the poor? I mean, food is all about poor people.
Well, I think the key issue for us is the increase in the price of petroleum and the knock-on effect it has on all other goods and on all trade matters. It is something we must address. We've had a good grain harvest in South Africa in the past few years. So I think on that side, we have some protection. But should this conflict last for a very long time, obviously the knock-on effects become even worse for us. So it's in all our interest to negotiate a peaceful outcome. It's what South Africa has been calling for, and I know Chancellor Scholz did visit both Ukraine and Germany and is one of those leaders that is committed to seeking a negotiated outcome, because Germany itself is impacted upon in gas and oil trade matters. So South Africa will continue through President Ramaphosa to argue for a diplomatic approach, and we hope that the efforts of President Macky Sall will gain some traction for Africa. However, Sophie, you do know there have been other conflicts.
Yes.
There has been sanctions unilaterally on other countries such as Iran. You've not seen any modicum of giving way to the interests of other regions that are not party to a conflict. So I'm not sure that we will win the argument, but I think we must argue it as vociferously as possible as Africa.
Minister, you will be going to Egypt. Can you share with us the purpose of the visit in Egypt?
Well, we have a joint commission between South Africa and Egypt, which was established many years ago at the inception of South Africa's democracy. We've not serviced it as well as we should have done. Egypt is a very big population. It's a country that has an economy that's growing. They've got an increasing interest, particularly in links with sub-Saharan Africa, and are very keen to establish strong economic ties with South Africa. So I'm hoping that our visit there, I'm also hoping to go and see the new smart city that is being built in Egypt, so that I get a sense of how we might influence our own new coastal city in South Africa. So this is really rebuilding those long-established links and ensuring that we have key programs. I'm accompanied by a delegation of officials from 7 South African departments, and I hope that we will influence a stronger partnership with Egypt.
And finally, the AU summit in Equatorial Guinea. What is high on the agenda?
Well, these are, Sophie, I think 2 extremely critical summits for South Africa. The first one is on terrorism and how we combat it together as the African continent, and the second is really looking at the humanitarian situation, which often arises from conflicts in the various countries on the continent, and so looking at pledging and committing as African countries toward the humanitarian relief of those who are suffering the worst consequences of terrorism and internecine warfare.
Thank you so much, Minister. That was Minister of International Relations in South Africa, Dr. Naledi Pandor, talking to us about this important visit. And she will also be going to Equatorial Guinea with the President of South Africa, where they will both attend the AU summit. The summit will also look at the current challenges of removal of government by force, particularly by the military. Thank you.
And thanks, Sophie. There I see Dr. Naledi Pandor, the Minister of International Relations, hesitating a bit to mention that Egypt is the 2nd biggest economy on the continent, of course, just ahead of South Africa, which comes in at 3rd. Let's take a look at your